Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of MazzaOnMets. This is a different edition, a State of the Mets edition, as I'm going to call this episode. Tomorrow will be our usual episode where I'll recap the series with the Pittsburgh Pirates and preview the series with the Milwaukee Brewers coming up. That'll be tomorrow's episode. Today, we're just gonna we're just gonna talk. We're just gonna have a good old sit down conversation about the New York Mets and the state of the Mets and where they're at right now. Because obviously, if you watched this past weekend, if you saw what we saw, if you watched what we watched, if you were there in Pittsburgh, if you were watching on television, at the bar, at your friends, at your family's house, whatever you were doing this weekend as a Mets fan, watching the Mets play baseball, we obviously know what we're going to talk about here at the State of the Mets. This was, again, I'm not going to do a full recap of the Pirates series until tomorrow's show, but this was as embarrassing of a series. I'm just going to put it bluntly. This was as embarrassing of a series as the Mets have had all season long. They just got swept by the Atlanta Braves like a week or two ago. You know, this was as embarrassing of a series and as ridiculous of a series as the Mets have played in quite some time. Probably, since May of last year. Put it that way, since May of last year. But this was just embarrassing on all levels. They were, in this weekend, they made the Pittsburgh Pirates offense, one of the worst offenses in all of baseball, look like the 2004 Boston Red Sox. I know everyone likes to point to, some other offenses, like the Big Red Machine, etc. But, my point of emphasis on offenses, honestly, I like to go to the 2004 Boston Red Sox, just me. But anyway, they made the Pittsburgh Pirates offense look like the 2004 Boston Red Sox offense. This Mets pitching, which has been so good all season, I'd like to think finally hit rock bottom. I'd like to think finally hit rock bottom. I'd like to think it finally did. But we'll see. But I'd like to think this weekend it finally hit rock bottom because that was as embarrassing of a weekend as series as they've had all year long. Montez was rocked up yesterday. Again, won't recap the whole thing, but Montez, Peterson, Blackburn. Nothing. They gave you nothing. They gave you zilch. Zero. Nothing. Kaput. Nothing. They gave you nothing. The Mets bullpen. Nothing. Gave you nothing. All weekend. Gave you nothing. The Mets offense, aside from Soto, Nimmo, whatever, gave you nothing. They gave you nothing. They were beaten, embarrassed, and completely dominated by the Pittsburgh Pirates. Again, hey, the Pittsburgh Pirates swept the Phillies literally earlier this month. But that can't happen. That can't happen. They've now lost 13 of their last 16 games. They were 21 games over 500 3 weeks ago and have now lost 13 of their last 16 games. They're now 11 games over 500 after being 21 games over 500. They've lost 10 games in the standings, or at least 10 games in their record over the past two or so 3 weeks. Since June 13th. Since June 13th, they have lost 10 games in their record. At the end of June 12th, when they swept the Colorado Rockies and they won that game and swept that series, they were 21 games over 500. 21. That was at the end of Thursday, June 12th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 days later, they sit now 11 games over 500. Now, I know some of you might say, well, 11 games over 500 is still pretty good. In theory, yes. But in reality, the way they played, losing 13 of their last 16 games, no, it's not. And it's not just that they've lost 13 of their last 16 games. A lot of these are not even close. They got walloped by the Pirates this weekend. And it hasn't been just the Pirates. They were walloped on multiple occasions by the Atlanta Braves. They were walloped the last 2 games against the Tampa Bay Rays. They were walloped in 2 of the 3 games against the Phillies. And the first game against the Phillies, that was pretty competitive, but then it got lost, then it got away from them. And again, that's been another common theme. That's what happened that's what happened yesterday against the Pirates. Close competitive game, and it just got away from them. It took 1 inning, got away from them. But that has been the state of this team right now. Most of these games, most of these losses, Most of these games, guys, they're not competitive. They're just non-competitive. They're non-competitive. And they look lost. They look embarrassed. They look they look flustered. They look blustered. They look uh uh they don't know what they don't. I don't think they. I don't. They're shell shocked. Let's put it that way. This is a shocked ball club. They're shocked. This is a shocked ball club. They don't know. They don't know what's going on. Just like we don't know what's going on. They're shocked. This is a shocked ball club. And after Saturday's loss to the Pirates, they held a team meeting. Hey, okay. Last year, hey, they held a team meeting last year and everything went hunky dory. Well, you thought, well, today's game, down 6-0, or excuse me, down 5-0 in the first inning, down 6-0 after the second inning. A day after the team meeting. A day after the team meeting, they're down 6-0 in the second inning. Boys, the game, fellas, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, fellas, did you think they were coming back down 5-0 after in the first inning when Montez gave up 5 runs? No, you didn't. Did you think they were coming back down 6 runs a second? No, you didn't. This game is over, folks. Coming off the team meeting, a players only meeting where Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, and Pete Alonso all spoke, and that was your response? That is that's not ideal, man. That's atrocious. That's your response? That is your response to the team meeting? Being down 6-0 right off the bat? That's atrocious. Frankie Montez or not, that's atrocious. I don't care if it was Frankie Montez. I don't care if it was Johan Santana. I don't care if it was Leiter. I don't care if it was Tom Seaver. I don't care if it was Dwight Gooden. I don't care if it was R.A. Dickey 2012. I don't care if it was Matt Harvey 2012 to 2015. I don't care if it was Prime Noah Syndergaard 2015 to 2016, 17, 18. I don't care if it was Jacob deGrom. I don't care. It could be Frankie Montez or it could have been any other of those pitchers. It could have been Rick Reed. It could have been Bobby Jones. It could have been anybody. I don't care who's pitching today. You cannot go out there and get shell shocked and get shellacked the way you did and be down 5-0 right off the bat. That can't happen, especially after the team meeting. Especially after the team meeting. That can't happen. And they had to leave Montez in there because they had to get a couple of innings in there. But again, I'm trying not to recap the game. But the way this team is right now, there is not one thing they're doing right. And that's what happens when you have a bad stretch like this. They can't hit. They're not hitting. They don't field. They're not fielding particularly well. Their base running has been bad. Brett Beatty made a terrible base running mistake just yesterday, doing too much. Again, that's kind of what happens when you're in a funk like this. You do a little too much. Offense, pitching, base running, defense, coaching. You do a little too much. And that's what this team is doing. We'll get to coaching in a second because I do have a little bit of a rant to go on. I'll try not to rant too much, but because I don't like ranting here, but I'll try not to rant too much about the Mets hitting coach because he really got on my nerves this weekend. He really did. But that's what happens when you're trying to just a little bit too much. You press, you go a little too hard, and you make mistakes. But they're not doing anything right. It's not just the starting pitching that's come down to earth. It's the bullpen that's come down to earth. Look, folks, we knew this offense hasn't been great. We knew this offense has not scored with runners in scoring position. We knew that. The Pittsburgh Pirates offense looked much better with runners in scoring position. They were much better in situational hitting than the Mets did. The Pittsburgh Pirates offense looked like a playoff offense with runners in scoring position this weekend over the Mets did. And the Mets offense continues to run. Even in the game where they're down 8-0 or 7-1, I think, whatever the score was, Brandon Nimmo gets a leadoff double. Again, I'll try not to recap the game, but I'm just pointing an example. Brandon Nimmo gets a leadoff double. They can't drive him in. How many times have we seen that this year? We've seen that a lot this year, folks. We've seen that a lot this year. The guy gets a leadoff double, and they can't drive him in. And that's Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil coming up. Brandon Nimmo's done. Hey, Brandon Nimmo's hit. I can't even raggle on Juan Soto. Also, while he did strike out, I think 5 times the last 2 games, but he's hit. He had a heck of a month, one of the best months in Met history. So I can't rag on him. And I think just to go on the Juan Soto thing for a second, I think that's what really irks you, right? You finally got the Juan Soto you wanted. Juan Soto's been inconsistent, at this point so far through the first 2 months. Before the month of June, he was very inconsistent. Hot to start, cold, got hot a bit, cold, you know. But then in June, this month, he was phenomenal. One of the best months in team history. They get that from Juan Soto, and they go 3-13 to finish the month. How does that happen? How does that happen? 9-2 to start the month of June. They were a football team, folks. They started off the month of June 9-2, looking like they were going to get that number 1 seed in the playoffs, right? We're talking a football aspect. And then all of a sudden, things flipped a switch, just went the other way, and they went 3-13. Looked like a team with an. They went from a team looking like in June, in the month of June, they looked like a team that was ready to get a number 1 and number 2 seed in their conference, to a team that's going to get a top 3 or number 1 pick in the NFL draft. From 9-2 to 3-13 to finish the month. 9-2 to 3-13. 9-2 to 3-13. They were swept by the Pirates and outscored 30. Folks, Pittsburgh Pirates outscored the New York Mets 30-4. Maybe that's something I should say tomorrow because, again, recap, but 30-4. 30-4. The Pittsburgh Steelers defeated the New York Jets 30-4. They held a team meeting on Saturday after Saturday night's game, and it didn't pay off. But it was only 1 game, so we'll give it a few more games until we make a full determination, see if it paid off or not. But that was a horrible, horrible response to the meeting. Horrible response. Starting pitching looks atrocious. They can't go deep into games. And by the way, that was again a problem really at the beginning of the year, but the pitching was good. They couldn't go deep into games, but the pitching was good. Now they can't go deep into games, and the pitching stinks. So that's your problem. That's your problem. The pitching was good, even when it didn't go deep into games. But now it ain't good. And the bullpen would go in the 6th, the 5th, the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and be shut down. Now it's not. Reed Garrett's had his troubles. Reed Garrett did bounce back a couple of times, but he's had his troubles as of late. Brazoban has completely fallen off. Brazoban has completely gone back to last year. Brazoban that we saw last year, yeah, that's him now. 12 walks in his last several outings. 12. He's walked 12 guys in his last several outings. Oscar Brazoban. And again, this was a guy who for the first 2 months was close to unhittable. He was close to unhittable, throwing strikes. His changeup was fantastic. He was close to unhittable the first 2 months. But now we've seen the Brazoban from a year ago. A guy who has not thrown strikes, and he has come right back down to earth. 12 walks. 12 walks in his last several outings. Ryan Stanek actually has pitched a little bit better as of late. He's pitched a little bit better as of late. But there's no collective outing, and they've made these changes left and right, from Richard Lovelady to Colin Prochet to Brandon Waddell, who actually was pretty good on Saturday, to be fair. He was pretty good yesterday. We'll, again, talk more about it tomorrow. Jose Budo has actually stepped up pretty well as of late. Who else have they pitched over the last couple of days out of the bullpen? Well, Blade Tidwell. They brought back Blade Tidwell, and he's pitched. Wasn't good on Friday, but they pitched. He pitched the other day. He's apparently going to start in Griffin Canning's absence. If he better, hey, he's facing a very good. I'm pretty sure he's facing the Milwaukee Brewers. He better be good. He better give you something. Meanwhile, Jonah Tom, Brandon Sproat, and Nolan McLean are in the minor leagues pitching really well. At some point, when do one of these guys get an opportunity? That might be another conversation, but let's have it. Let's have the conversation. Let's have the conversation. When in the world are you going to call these guys up? When? It's July now, folks. It's June 30th, June 29th, excuse me, but it'll be July. It'll be July 1st when the Mets take the field again. When are you going to give these guys a chance? How do you have what more do you need out of Paul Blackburn? What more do you need to see out of Paul Blackburn? What more do you need to see? What more is there need to be seen about Paul Blackburn? He stinks. He stinks, folks. What more do you need to see about Paul Blackburn? What more do you need to see? Tidwell hasn't looked great. What do you need to see out of him? I mean, this his upcoming start might as well be a proven. His upcoming start, his upcoming start, Tidwell might as well be an audition. If he doesn't pitch well, then he can't pitch again the rest of the season. How much longer do you need to see of Paul Blackburn? How much? What do you need to see? He's not good. How much do you need to see out of him? There's nothing left to see out of him. He's awful. Awful. And his performance on Saturday was unacceptable. I don't care if it was an hour rain delay. That's unacceptable. Brandon Sproat, give him a chance. Jonah Tong, I know he's in double A, give him a chance. Nolan McLean, give him a chance. Give one of these guys an opportunity. Let's have that talk. It's time. It's July. It is July. It's time to give these guys an opportunity. There's no Tyler McGill. Sean Manaea had a setback, and he might not be back till at least till the All-Star break, at least till before, shortly before the All-Star break. Kodai Senga is hurt. He's not coming back till at least sometime after the All-Star break. Griffin Canning's now out for the season. Peterson has really struggled in his last two outings. Holmes is now apparently on a pitch count limit or an innings limit, whatever's going on with that. When do one or two of these guys get an opportunity? When? You know the Milwaukee Brewers, who you're about to play this weekend? They called up their young stud, and he looks fantastic. Jacob Mizorowski. This dude's throwing 102. They gave him a chance. They're playing great baseball. The Milwaukee Brewers are playing great baseball right now. They're coming into that series red hot, and they called up their kid, and he's been great. And they're playing much better than you are right now. They didn't really need their kid to come up and pitch, but they called him up anyway. And he's been great. And the Mets face him this week. He might throw a no-hitter the way this offense is hitting right now. And let's go to the offense for a second, and let's go to Eric Chavez. Eric Chavez is too busy fighting with Met fans on Instagram. I don't know if some of you guys saw, but Eric Chavez is apparently beefing with Met fans on Instagram. He spent the weekend, while his team was getting out hit 30-4 by the Pittsburgh Pirates, and not scoring runs in scoring position again. Spent the whole weekend only scoring 4 runs and not scoring runs in scoring position. He was beefing with Met fans on Instagram. That's the Mets hitting coach, or at least one of the two Mets hitting coaches they have. Eric, you were a good player during your time. You're actually a pretty darn good player during your time with the Oakland A's. But you're an absolutely pitiful coach. A pitiful hitting coach. Pitiful. And instead of helping the team and helping the organization, helping this offense, and helping them get better, you're too busy fighting with the team on Instagram. Fighting with the fans on Instagram. Now, look, I get it. Look, Met fans are crazy. I'm just crazy. Met fans are crazy. I get it. Met fans are emotional. I get it. Look at this video, for example. I get it. Met fans can sometimes, you look at them and go, dude, do you think you know the game better? I get that. I really do. I get that. And someone like Eric Chavez, who was a good player during his time, well accomplished, had a good career, I get it. He looks at some fans and goes, you don't know more than I do, which is technically true, which is very true. Yeah, Eric Chavez knows more about baseball than Met fans will ever know. Guy had a good career. That's very true. Eric Chavez knows more about the game than a lot of others do. And he was a good hitter, which makes it even more infuriating that this offense continues to stink with runners in scoring position with him at the helm. And it makes it even more infuriating that instead of helping the team, you're spending more time going on Instagram and social media and beefing and fighting with Met fans. So that makes it even more infuriating. because I know you know a lot more about baseball. I know you were a darn good hitter during your time. I grew up watching you with the Oakland A's. I I get it. I know, man. I know how good of a player you were. I know how much you know, brother. I know, brother. So that means you should get off Instagram. Stop fighting with Met fans. Stop fighting with the Frank the Tanks of the world. I'm just kidding. He's not actually fighting with Frank the Tank, but I'm just using that as an example. Stop fighting with them on the Instagram and get to work because your offense is pitiful. Your offense can't score runs in scoring position. You have an offense with Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Francisco Alvarez, who you hey, hey guys. Francisco Alvarez has hit 2 home runs to left center field since going to AAA. Hey, Eric Chavez, maybe you shouldn't have maybe you shouldn't have told Francisco Alvarez to adjust his game and tell them. Maybe you shouldn't have told him he stunk his rookie season. Maybe you should have told him to stop pulling the ball to left center field. Maybe you should have stopped trying to tell him to be a hitter that he's clearly not. Maybe instead of telling Francisco Alvarez to do stuff that he's not really comfortable doing, maybe you should have told him to keep getting better at what you're good at, which is pulling the ball to left field, left center. He's hit 2 home runs in triple. Alvarez has hit 2 home runs since he got to AAA, and they've both been to left center field, and they've both been nukes. They've both been bombs. I get it, it's AAA. I get it, it's AAA pitching. I get it. 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 But even still, he goes back to AAA, and what's the first 2 things he does? He hits home runs to left field, left center, which is exactly what Eric Chavez told him not to do. Because Chavez told him, hey, by the way, you actually stunk your rookie year, by the way. By the way, you weren't actually good your rookie year. Yeah, those 23 homers yet? Forget that. You weren't actually good your rookie year. You don't tell your young catcher that. You don't tell your young 22-year-old catcher that. You don't tell him that. You tell him, okay, this is what you tell him, Eric. Okay, buddy, you were good in your rookie year, but let's see what we can do to improve on that. You don't tell him he stinks. You don't tell him he stunk his rookie year. And then say, let's make you the guy. Let's make you a hitter you're clearly not comfortable being. Let's get you to hit the opposite field, even though you're not really an opposite field hitter. You're a guy who pulls the ball to left field, left center field, center field. That's the guy you are, you know. But no, Chavez decided to try to make Alvarez into something he's not. And unfortunately, because of that, Alvarez has regressed in the last 2 years to the point where he's now back in AAA, hitting home runs to left field, left center field. You know, what he was doing 2 years ago. Eric, I like you as a player. I like you. I like you as a player. As a player, you were pretty good. I like you. But dude, you gotta step up your game. And you know, it's not just you, it's Jeremy Barnes. You two have got to step up your game. I know people want to point to the players. And yeah, I get it. Of course. Francisco Lindor has really struggled as of late. Pete Alonso has not been bad, but certainly not been great as of late. You know, Soto and Nimmo, really the only 2 guys hitting. Jeff McNeil also. I can credit Jeff McNeil. He's actually hit too as of late. And I get anything out of Mauricio. Beatty has hit a little bit better as of late, but overall, not much. Acuna didn't get much out of over the last month or so before he got sent down. Not getting anything out of the catcher position. Luis Torrens had a decent day today, home run and a base hit, but still, overall, not much out of him or Sanger. And they, of course, continue to struggle with runners in scoring position. So I don't know if there's going to be any changes made tomorrow during their off day, and there is. We'll talk about it on the show. I doubt it. But at some point, the Mets have to think about making a change of hitting coach for both of them, Barnes and Chavez, especially if things are not going to get back. Guys, it's July. We're about to go to July. It'll be July 1st when the Mets play a baseball game again. And they have the same problems on offense. They have the same problems. They don't score runs scoring position. They are literally the second worst team in all of baseball with runners in scoring position. And that is a team that's 11 games over 500. That is a team that I think as of this recording is still only a half game out of first place. Hold on. Let me do a quick check of the Braves Phillies game going on. Let me do a quick checkup of that game. Oh, the Phillies won 2-1. Oh, there you go. The Phillies won the game 2-1, so the Mets are now a game and a half out of first place. Even still, a team that's 11 games over 500, only a game and a half out of first, still in one of the top two spots in the wild card. I think they still own the first spot in the wild card, and they're the second worst team in all of Major League Baseball with runners in scoring position. They're only better than the Chicago White Sox. The only team they're better at running scoring position is the Chicago White Sox. Not exactly the company you should be a part of. Not exactly the company you should be part of. The team that swept you has a better batting average running scoring position. Boy, that batting average got good this weekend. Sure it did. That batting average, I'm sure, bumped up a bit after this weekend, but I'm sure that batting average for the Pirates bumped up this weekend. But even coming into the series, they had a better batting average than you with running scoring position. I don't know if there's any changes being made tomorrow, but you got to figure ownership, Cohen, GM, David Stearns, and even the manager, Carlos Mendoza, have got to be fed up. The players are fed up too, but those three especially have got to be fed up. SNY was talking about it. I think around the sixth or so inning, seventh inning, like you got to figure the coaches are fed up. Yeah, but I'm sure, yeah, the coaches I'm sure are fed up. But it's also fed up the manager. It's also fed up the general manager. It's also fed up the owner. This team is 19-25 on the road. 19-25 on the road, folks. 19-25 on the road. 19-25. You want to win in any sport. In sports, the biggest thing in sports is winning games on the road. And the Mets last year ended up being, or at least turned out to be, a pretty darn good road team. And then when it came to the playoffs, boy, it paid off. 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee. Took game 1 in Philadelphia. Heck, they took game 2 in Los Angeles to make sure the series was tied at 1, heading back to Citi Field in the NLCS. Ironically, the Mets really lost that series against the Dodgers at home, and they lost games 3 and 4. But what makes a good team? What makes a good team? What makes a good playoff team? You win games on the road. You win on the road. Right now, and that's just in any sport. Doesn't matter what sport. In any sport, you win games on the road. You win games on the road. You win championships by winning games on the road. This team is not a good road team. They're 19-25 on the road. 19-25. Yeah, they may be 27-12 at home, although some of those 12 losses have come as of late at home. Actually, yeah. They're 27-12 at home. Well, they got swept by Tampa. That's over their last 3. Then they lost. So they're 2-5 in their last 7 home games. They got swept by Tampa Bay. Then they lost, and then they split Atlanta. So they're 2-5 as of late at home. And oh yeah, your next 2 home series, Milwaukee and the Yankees. Good luck. The way you're playing right now, oof, that home record might get a little bit bumpy. But 19-25 on the road. You want to be a good team? You want to be a good playoff team? You want to be a championship team? You got to win on the road. You've got to win games on the road. I don't care where it is. You've got to win on the road. And you can't get swept at Pittsburgh. You can't go into Pittsburgh and get swept. And completely take away this is what they did. This is why I said on the last show that I wasn't buying into the whole, the Mets have bounced back. What a great bounce back by the Mets of the Braves. They're back. They continue. I said, let's wait and see. If you watched the last show, I said, let's wait and see. Well, here we are. 3 days later. Like I said, wait and see. Because the way they were playing, I wasn't buying it. Yeah, they won the last 2 at Atlanta. That's great. They won the last 2 against the Braves. That's great, but I still wasn't buying it. They still had lost 10 of their last 12 or whatever it was. They still had a bad stretch going. Winning 2 in a row doesn't mean the bad stretch, doesn't mean that you're out of the bat, doesn't mean that you're out of the hole. It just means that you've climbed up a bit to get out of the hole. Unfortunately, the hole got a little bit deeper over the weekend. There you go. So They've done exactly what I was hoping they wouldn't do this weekend, which is and why I was cautioning people to say, "Oh, that's it. Oh, team's back. They're playing great." You know, I said, "Let's wait and see." I said, "Let's wait and see." So, quick water break. So here we are now. Here we are now. They've lost 13 of the last 16 games. They finished the season. They finished the month of June 3-13. They're 11 games over 500 now after being 21 games over 500 at the end of at June on June 12th. 21 games over 500. They're about to hit July 1st, and they're now only 11 games over 500 after losing 13 of the last 16 games. They're a game and a half out of first place in the division, and they're just not playing good baseball. Can't hit, can't pitch, can't not really fielding consistently. Making it's can't base running is they're doing too much. Coaching has been bad. Mendoza is pushing any button he can, but that ain't working. Mendoza's not pushing any right buttons, period. Heck, Mendoza tried to get himself thrown. Help, Mendoza got himself thrown out on Saturday, hoping that would light a spark. Well, that didn't work. Not only did they lose the game on Saturday, they got blown out the next day later. So that didn't work. So here we are. Here we are. As they enter a day off tomorrow, and again, we'll be back on the show tomorrow to talk more about the series and the preview of the series with the Brewers. But they've now lost 10 of their last. They've now lost 13 of the last 16. 3-13 to finish the month. Look, you want to be a good playoff team. You want to be a good team. You want to be a championship caliber team. And I get it. You're going through it. Injuries to the pitching staff, mixing and matching bullpen pieces because of injuries or whatever. But it's not acceptable. Not acceptable for a team with championship aspirations. Not acceptable. I don't care what the roster looks like. You came into the season with championship. This was different than last year, man. This is different. And like I said, this is Carlos Mendoza's biggest test. This whole stretch has been Mendoza's biggest test. Last year being 11 games under and whatever, this is nothing. That's nothing compared to this, man. Because last year there was no expectations. Now there is. Championship, not just expectations, championship expectations. So the Mets are going to have to battle out of this. Hopefully something does come out of the team meeting from Saturday. Today wasn't a good start to that, but I'll give it more than one game. I give it more than one game. Heck, I don't think the Mets won their first game. No, I don't think they did. I don't think the Mets won their first game after the team meeting. Maybe they did. I don't know. I'll have to think. I don't know. I'll have to look back on. They had the team meeting last year after that was the game where Jorge Lopez threw the gloves. So they won the first game after. Maybe they did. Maybe they did. I think that was the JD Martinez walk-off homer. But even still, you gotta give him more than one game. So I'll give it more than one game. I'll give it a week. I'll give it more than one game. I'll give it a week to see if anything has come from the team meeting. But we'll see. But this is Carlos Mendoza's biggest test. Because now you have a championship contending caliber team that's going through a real rough stretch right now. 13 of 16, 3-13, not playing good baseball at all. Not playing good baseball at all. At all. At all, man. At all. And you're pitching, you've got injuries. You're not hitting on the scoring position. Your pitching is getting blasted, both starters and relievers, aside from Edwin Diaz, of course. I keep I keep saying the bullpen, but yet I want to say aside from Edwin Diaz, because Edwin Diaz is every time he goes out there, he's been fine. Every time Edwin Diaz goes out there, he's been fine. Again, just like with Juan Soto, it's like Edwin Diaz is pitching great, and yet the rest of the bullpen, or at least most of it, isn't. That's not ideal. You want Juan Soto to hit well, but you also want the rest of the offense to do better. So you want Edwin Diaz to pitch well out of the bullpen, but you also want the rest of the bullpen to pitch well. And Edwin Diaz, like Juan Soto, Brandon Nimmo is pitching really well when he gets the ball in the ninth inning. But you got to get to the ninth inning with a lead. You got to get to the ninth inning with a lead. They don't have leads. They're not just not having leads in the ninth inning; they're getting blown out. Edwin Diaz doesn't get a chance to go in the ninth inning, even in a tight game, because they're getting blown out by the sixth, seventh, eighth inning, whatever, or today they were blown out by the second or even the first inning. But Diaz is pitching great, but he can't get enough up. But he's not getting the opportunities as of late because the Mets aren't giving him any opportunities. And the Mets bullpen sometimes isn't giving him any opportunities because the bullpen implodes in the seventh or eighth, whatever. So they're not giving him any opportunities, as a unit. This is their biggest test. This is Carlos Mendoza's biggest test as a manager to this point. This is his biggest test. It's not last year when they were 11 under 500. It's not last year. No, this is a different beast. This is a different animal altogether, man. This is a different animal altogether. Because again, they didn't have expectations last year. They didn't. But this year, oh yeah, they had expectations. You had expectations the minute you put pen to paper with Juan Soto's contract. You had expectations to win a World Series the minute you put pen to paper on the guy that helped the New York Yankees go to the World Series last year. Pretty much virtually carried them to the World Series last year. Virtually carried them last year to the World Series. You made that clear when you put pen to paper on that guy. Stearns wanted him. Yes, David Stearns wanted him, folks. David Stearns wanted Juan Soto, folks. He wanted him. Okay? I still keep seeing Met fans say David Stearns didn't want Juan Soto. David Stearns wanted Juan Soto, folks. It wasn't just Steve Cohen. Yes, the money. No. David Stearns wanted Juan Soto too, folks. It wasn't just Steve Cohen. The entire Mets organization wanted Juan Soto. But you made that clear when you signed him. So nothing else is acceptable. Nothing else is acceptable. Nothing else. Aside from winning a championship is acceptable. And having a stretch like this is not the makings of a World Series team. And hey, I just mentioned the Yankees last year. And they went to the World Series. They were horrible at this time last year. The Yankees were horrible at this time last year. Horrible. And they went to the World Series. But the difference is that they were still by far clearly the best team in a not so great American League. They just were. It's not a dig. Not just because I'm a Mets fan. It's not a dig. It's just what it is. It's just what it was. The Yankees were still clearing away the best team in the American League. You just looked at the American League last year, and they were still clearing away the best team. And I could still say that even this year. The only other team you could look at is the Detroit Tigers. Maybe the Houston Astros, but I'm still kind of cautious with the Astros. I like them, and the Astros, no matter what, continue to find ways to win. That's just makes them such a great organization, such a great team. Just no matter, everyone counts out once again, the people count out the Astros this year, just like they kind of count them out last year. But people kind of count out the Astros this year, and they're playing great, and they're first place in the division. They're getting contributions from everybody because it just speaks to the way their organization is, the way their organization is built, and the players, and the coaching, and the coaching, and all that stuff, and the organization. They're just good. They're just good at what they do. The Astros are the American League's Dodgers. They are. Just doesn't matter who they have and what they get. They just contribute. Doesn't matter. They find ways to win games. Honestly, I could also, a better comparison, I think, aside from the Dodgers with the Astros is the Cardinals. When they were, the Cardinals, when they were making the playoffs every year, didn't matter what team they had, didn't matter what players they had. They still found a way to compete and be good. But anyway, this is different to me because the Mets are in the National League with the Phillies, the Braves, who I still think are going to be in it, the Dodgers, the Padres, the Giants, and the Cubs. All these teams are really good. Really good. Yes, even the Braves, folks. Even the Braves. All these teams are really good. They're really good, man. This isn't the American League with the Yankees last year. This isn't the American League. This isn't last year's American League. This isn't the American League this year. This is the National League with the Dodgers, the Giants, the Padres, the Phillies, the Braves, and the Cubs. This is what the Mets have to compete with. Some very good baseball teams. Some very good teams. Championship caliber teams. That's what the Mets are playing against. And that's who they have to beat if they want to go to the World Series this year. So you can't be playing like this at any point this season. I know it's just June. I know it's still a long ways to go. And we're not even at the All-Star break yet. I understand, but you cannot be playing like this. You can't play like this. You're better than this. They are better than this. They got to find a way to right the ship, get the ship back on the back, get the train back on the track, and get back to winning baseball games. But right now, this is bad. They're not again. They're not just. It'd be one thing if they were losing close games. It'd be one thing if most of these games were close losses by 1 run, 2 runs, whatever. There were a couple of them have been, but that's the thing. Just a couple. The majority have been blowouts. Blowouts. Or games that were tight but turned into a blowout. They've been non-competitive in majority of these games, and I think that's what really, really looks. You look at that and go, "Wow, wow." Again, it's one thing if they were losing these games close, but most of these games are getting. It's most of these games they're blowouts. So they got to find a way to get the train back on the track. They got to find a way to get moving again. They got to. And they got to piece this together before, eventually before you might find yourself under 500. And then and then there's going to be a lot of people going crazy. We're going to have there's going to be a lot. If you get to under 500, if you get to under 500, all those packed houses at Citi Field that the Mets have had all season long, yeah, those are not going to happen anymore. If this team at some point of the season if this team at some point in the season gets to under 500, those packed houses, they're not going to get packed anymore. All of a sudden, people won't go. Heck, they didn't go last year when you were hot. They were only coming this year because there was high expectations, World Series expectations, the signing of Juan Soto, and you have been truly grateful and truly happy to see, especially if you're Steve Cohen, because he talked about it before the season began, to go to the ballpark every day and see a packed house because they want to see a winning ball club. And boy, for the first 2.5 months, and they did. 21 games over 500. Boy, for the first 2.5 months, they did. I have no doubt they'll still pack the house this week against the Milwaukee Brewers and especially the Yankees. I have no doubt. I have no doubt. I have no doubt people will still pack Citi Field. But if this team gets under 500, this team continues to struggle like this and gets under 500, yeah, those seats are going to get empty. People are gonna not pay a ticket. If this team gets under 500 and keeps struggling, yeah, people are not going to go to the games. They'll stay home. They'll watch the games. It's New York. It's New York. As Colin Cowherd says, New Yorkers find something else to watch. You get under 500, man. Those seats are not. You get under 500, man. People are not going to go to the games. They won't go. They will not go. You saw it last year when you were 11 games under 500. Heck, even when you were hot, you still saw it because people. I don't think there are many Met fans that still bought into the team last year when they were really good and hot and had the best record in baseball from June to the NLCS. They finally packed the house in the postseason against the Phillies and the Dodgers. But if you continue to struggle the way you're struggling, and you eventually get to under 500, people aren't going to go. They won't go to the games, and they won't go to the games. And all that excitement and that you had at Citi Field, that home field advantage you had for those 2.5 months, you're not going to have that. The Mets don't want that to happen because Citi Field, I don't think it's Shea Stadium when the Mets are great and it's a packed house and, the place is a home field advantage. I don't think it's still at the levels of Shea Stadium, but boy, it's still a great home field advantage when the Mets are really good and the place is packed. Look, the Mets have proven that. When the Mets have been good in the Citi Field era, when they have been good, they've proved that. They've proven that, how good of a home field advantage it can be. And the fans have proven that by packing the house and being loud and crazy and having a great time and rooting on the team. I still don't think it's Shea Stadium, but it's still pretty good. And gets loud, really loud. But if you struggle like this, if you get struck like this, then it's not going to be that home field advantage for you. And the Mets don't want that. And Steve Cohen doesn't want that. So it's going to take time, I think. So that's the question. How do you fix this? We'll get to now. We'll get to this. Now we get to this part. How do we fix this? How do the Mets fix this? There's no easy fix because you ain't getting Senga to the All-Star break. You're not getting Manaea for at least another couple of weeks. McGill is still out, and Canning's out for the season, and your bullpen's still a mix and mesh. So there's really no easy fix right now. There's no immediate fix right now. They just what you can fix though is your offense with runners in scoring position. But you've waited 3 months to get that fixed, and it still hasn't been fixed. That is the real only easy thing to fix right now. And that is your hitting gets a little bit better and starts to carry the team a bit. You know, be the team that scores 9 runs 3 games in a row, like the Pirates just did on you. You know, and that comes from scoring with runners in scoring position. So what does that mean? Well, that means Chavez and Barnes have to step up. That means Juan Soto has to step up. That means Lindor has to step up. That means Pete Alonso has to step up. That means Jeff McNeil. That means Brandon Nimmo. That means Luis Torrens. That means Ronnie Mauricio. That means Pep Brady. That means Mark Vientos. That means Hayden Sanger. That means them all of them. Every single one of them, from the manager Mendoza to the 2 hitting coaches to every single player that they put in the lineup card. Starling Marte, every single player they put in the lineup card and pinch hits or DHs and whatever. All of them. Every single one of them. It's up to the offense now. They're really the easy fix. And that's really the truth here. They are the ones that can carry this team and help out this pitching staff right now. That's really it. Because there's no quick, easy fix right now for the pitcher. There's no quick, easy fix. At least for another couple of weeks. When Senga's back and Manaea's back. So, in terms of the pitching, Pearson's got to be better than he's been the last 2 outings. Holmes has got to really get, let Holmes loose, I guess. Let Holmes loose, I guess. I don't know. And hope that his inning stuff can be at least better. Holmes can get back to what he was doing before, early in the season. Hopefully Montez can look more like his first game against Atlanta than he did today. Because, boy, they need that. But there's no quick, easy fix. In terms of the bullpen, again, there's no quick, easy fix. You just got to hope Brazoban gets back to the way he's been, especially him. Especially Brazoban. Especially Brazoban. Budo maybe continues to pitch a little bit better. Maybe Waddell could be a nice little lefty out of the bullpen because I do like Waddell. I do like what I've seen out of him, when he pitches. Maybe they get something out of Tidwell. I don't know. But really, there's no quick, easy fix for the pitching. There's no quick, easy fix. You got till the trade deadline to make a move. If you want to make a move sooner rather than later, I can understand. But the trade deadline still is later this month. Senga and Manaea are still going to be coming back in the next couple of weeks. You got to wait this out in terms of the pitching. So the hitting is the only thing that I can say is an easy fix. And that requires each and every single guy, and from the players to the coaches, to start getting better with runs in scoring position. Because if that gets better, if they start scoring runs early, instead of leaving runs in scoring position the first inning and second inning, all of a sudden your fortunes can turn a bit. You can win some games, even with the pitching not being at its best. That's the only easy fix I could come up with. If you guys have an easy fix, if you guys have another fix, hey, leave a comment below. But that's the only, leave a comment below. But that's the only fix I can think of. And that's the offense just getting better and scoring runs. That's it. Help out the pitching a bit. Give the pitching a lead. Yeah, it doesn't help when you're down 5-0 like today after the first inning, but still, give your pitching a lead. Give your pitching a lead to start the game, and maybe put your pitchers in a better position. That's the only easy fix, because right now there is no easy fix for the pitching. Pitching just has to wait it out until a couple guys get back, Senga and Manaea, or a trade or so, or some trades have been made. That's the only thing that you, so you have to wait out with the pitching, but the hitting is the only thing that can be the fix. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. And that requires every single one of them to get better runs scoring position. Every single one of them. That's the only fix. That's the only fix that I can think of. If you guys think there's other fixes to be made, that I'm not, if you guys think that, please leave a comment below. But please leave a comment below. That's the only fix I can think of, in my opinion. And that's the offense. And that's the offense. But boy, how long have I been ranting? How long have I been talking? I think it's an hour now. Wow. Look, there is a lot to talk about with the Mets. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. We'll recap the Pirates series. We'll preview the series of the Milwaukee Brewers tomorrow on MazzaOnMets. I just wanted to jump in and talk about the state of the Mets and where they're at right now, because there's just there's to get into right now. I don't even think I covered it all. Hey, I don't know if I covered it all. It's just so much. But so even still, this is a bad stretch they're on. They have really played their worst at not the worst time, because again, it's still June. But this has just been, like I said, they've just not, they haven't played to their potential. They haven't played to their potential. It'd be one thing if this ended in, if they had the 7-game losing streak and then got back to winning baseball games. Like they had the 7-game. It'd be one thing if they had the 7-game losing streak, then took the next 2 from Philadelphia, then took 3 out of 4 from Atlanta, and then took 2 after swept Pittsburgh. Then you'd be coming out and saying, okay, yeah, 7-game losing streak was just that, a 7-game losing streak. It happens, yada, yada, yada. Back to winning. But it clearly hasn't been just a 7-game losing streak. This is clearly a bigger thing. Because now, after the 7-game losing streak, they have now lost, let's see, Philly, Atlanta. They've now lost, let's see, Philly, Atlanta, Philly, Atlanta, Pittsburgh. They've now lost 6 of the last 9 games. Yeah, 6 of the last 9 games since the 7-game losing streak. So this wasn't just a one bad 7-game losing streak. No, this is just what they are right now. It'd be, like I said, it'd be one thing if this was just a 7-game losing streak and they came right back and won the series against Philly and beat the Braves and beat the Pirates. But no, they lost 2 out of 3 to Philly. They split Atlanta, and didn't win 3 out of 4, and they got swept by the Pirates. They've now been swept for the 3rd time in this stretch. Swept by Tampa, swept by Atlanta, and now swept by Pittsburgh. They've been swept now for the 3rd time after not getting swept at all. After not getting swept at all season long, they have been swept 3 times in the last 2 weeks. So make that as you will, or 3 weeks. Or 2 weeks, excuse me. So make that as you will. This is just a team. This is just how they play right now. This is who they are. The 7-game losing streak, that wasn't just a bad losing streak. No, this is just how they've been right now. This is who they are right now. This is just who they are. They have to get out of it. They have to get out of it. They have to get out of it. Get the train back on the track and get moving again. But it ain't easy, because again, there's no quick, easy fix. The only thing I can think of is the offense, but there's no easy fix. So, I think that'll be it. I think that's good for today in this state of the New York Mets. For today, we'll be back tomorrow to talk more about, again, that tomorrow we'll recap the series, talk more about what happened during the series against the Pirates, and we'll preview the series of the Milwaukee Brewers and anything else that happens on the Mets off day. See if anything else, if there's any news that comes out of this Mets off day, we'll talk about tomorrow. We'll talk about that. But that's it. That'll be it for this episode of MazzaOnMets, the State of the Mets edition. As the State of the Mets edition. We'll be back tomorrow for MazzaOnMets. I've been your host, Evan Mazza. Thank you once again for joining me. Thank you very much for listening to me talk about where this team is right now. I just wanted to jump. I didn't expect it. I didn't think this would be this long, to tell you the truth. I thought this would be at least 20 to 25 minutes. I'm pretty sure this turned into an hour. I'm pretty sure this turned into an hour. But thank you very much for listening to this 1 hour. Thank you very much for um, giving this a listen and hearing me out and hearing the state of the Mets and talking about where the Mets are at right now. And let's hope that they bounce back and get back to winning baseball games, because this should be a good baseball team. And right now they're just not playing like it. But again, this has been MazzaOnMets. Thank you very much for tuning in. Please give it a like, share, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate that. Again, thank you very much. We will see you tomorrow for a new episode of MazzaOnMets, and also on Tuesday, the debut episode of Mazza on Jets. I'll talk about the New York Jets on Tuesday as we head, because it's the first month of July. Training camp is approaching. Figure we talk. I've already talked about the Ravens a couple of times, and of course the signing of Jared Alexander. I've already talked about the Ravens a couple of times. We'll talk about the New York Jets on Tuesday on Mazza on the show, and we'll break down their off season, everything, and previewing training camp and what I expect the New York Jets to do this season. You might be surprised where I think the Jets will be at the end of the season, during the season. You may be surprised what record I have the Jets this season. You may be a bit surprised. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. You may be a bit surprised. That's a little teaser where I think the Jets might be in the 2025 season. But again, this has been MazzaOnMets. Thank you very much for tuning in. Give it a like, share, and subscribe. We will see you tomorrow. And let's go Mets.